We're here with Harry from Jag Panzer and numerous other projects like Satan's Host.
And Titan Force and Three Tremors.
And yeah, but those didn't come to my mind. I know about them obviously, but they rather than mispronouncing the band name and making a fool of myself, I just went with the most popular ones first. So
yeah, that's cool.
So you have a new album coming out with Jag Panzer, and I was reading one of your interviews when you were promoting the newest Satan's Host that this one's gonna be a concept album. Now you haven't done a concept album with Jag Panzer since Stain in 2000, right?
Right.
So what's the concept of the album like?
Well, the concept was basically around the cover of the album. Mm-hmm. We like the cover so much, we like the artwork so much that we thought, oh, well, let's make a concept based around that artwork. And
so the artwork came that early.
Yeah, and that's usually the first thing that we do is we figure out what kind of artwork we're going to have for our album, and that decides on whether we're going to have a song that is based on that artwork within the album or what we're going to do. So this time the artwork was so strong and it brought up such, cool stories in people's heads that we said, let's do a concept around that. So we did. Yeah. Rickard came up with the idea that we wanted to do it from the animal's perspective. And I said, yeah, cool. So I went with it and I wrote a little short story. And I waited for everybody's response, and they said that what I wrote was great. Don't change it. So we went with it, and we started writing songs. And about 3 months later, we had the whole thing written. It was great.
Okay. The cover artwork does remind me of another of Jag Panzer's cover artworks for Mechanized Warfare.
Yeah, a little bit like that, where there's a person standing with a weapon and
it's a very modern weapon.
Droid stuff behind him.
yeah. Usually power
like the Tyrant EP as well. There's a woman with a chainsaw, mm-hmm. and there's like a destroyed city behind her. So
yeah, it's usually power metal has a bit more of a fantasy setting, something a bit that feels more European medieval as opposed to this futuristic kind.
Yeah.
So was that intentional?
No, not really. We just Mark really liked the cover, mm-hmm. and he presented it to the rest of us, and we said, yeah, that's totally amazing. So let's start writing some songs. Well, Mark had about 3, maybe 3.5 songs written, and then Rickard came up with the idea, well, let's do a concept based on the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, it just kind of snowballed into what it is.
All right. And because you have also been doing concept albums for Satan's Host as well, like Predating God.
Yeah, that was it wanted to be a concept, but by the time we got to the end of writing the songs, it strayed from the initial concept. And so I tried to keep it in line with the original concept that we had all agreed to. But the guitarist said, nah, let's just write, because he started presenting songs. And he writes a major part of the lyrics for that band because we want to keep it as satanic and evil as possible. And I don't know much about that. So Anthony, the drummer, and Pat, the guitarist, know more about that. They're more in depth about it. So they're the ones who write the lyrics, and they started straying from the path. And so, yeah, it had some kind of a concept to it, but mostly no.
All right. And while we're on the Satan's Host topic, the last album that you had some production issues in regards to your recording of the voice, because it was recorded separately, and then the pace of the album changed, and not all of it could be redone for the album, right? Something along those lines.
Well, what really happened was when I tracked all my vocals, I tracked it to the drums that were initially laid.
Yes. And then those
once
changed.
They went in and they edited the drums, they changed some of the beats and they slowed down some of the songs. Well, now my vocals didn't match.
Mm.
And instead of taking the time to stretch my vocals and edit the vocals or call me back and have them re-sing, they just figured that they'd just leave it the way it was. So I was very unhappy with that, because I told them, send me the tracks and I'll sing it here in Greece. There's twice that I came back to Colorado for more than 2 weeks at a time to record those vocals, and they didn't set aside time to do it. I even told them 3 weeks in advance, hey, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be there for one time 2 weeks, and for the other time a month, and I'll record, redo whatever I need to, 1 song, 2 songs, 3 songs, the whole album. And they never planned on doing it. I got there and I said, hey, you guys ready? Nah, we don't have time. We couldn't get with the studio, whatever. Made excuses. So I just washed my hands of that album. I mean, I like what I did on that album, but I'm very unhappy with the way that it turned out, because, there's a lot of vocal things that are out of time, not out of pitch, but out of time. And there's a lot of things that I laid down that should have made it to the album that didn't. There's a whole song that I laid down that they elected not to put on that album. So, I mean, I'm very unhappy about that album. That's why I'm not doing anything with Satan's Host right now, because those guys basically pissed me off. I mean, they didn't treat me like a real band member when it came down to that. I mean, I gave them every opportunity to fix those mistakes, and they weren't even my mistakes. They were mistakes that they created when they edited the drums, and they slid the drums and decided to slow this song down and things like that. So I gave them every opportunity to re-sing that or actually do the stretching on my own here at my studio here in Greece. And they just didn't care about it. So if they don't care, I don't care.
All right. That's a bit of a shame, knowing that you're on a bit of strenuous terms with the rest of the band, because Satan's Host is a band that I really love, especially because it's one of those very few bands that started out in the 80s and kind of predated extreme metal, but from another angle, not from the trashy angle or from the early death metal or whatever, but from power metal. It's a very, very unique set of circumstances.
Yeah, there's nothing out there that sounds like Satan's Host. I mean, Satan's Host is their own genre of music. I mean, when you hear a Satan's Host song, it's Satan's Host. You can tell right away that's Satan's Host, like Deep Purple or something. There's nothing else that sounds like that. Or The Who. Right away you can tell that, oh, that's from The Who. Mm-hmm. So that's what's cool about Satan's Host. But there's member problems in that band, that there's certain guys that only see it their certain way, and it creates a lot of friction. And I'm just tired being in that band for over 30 years. I'm just tired of all that friction that doesn't have to be there. There's no need for that friction to be there. And so instead of staying in a band where there's friction, I'd much rather just be done with that. So all right. And it is sad for me, because that album could have been so much better than it was. I remember the initial tracks that I laid down and all the initial vocals was fantastic. And so we had high hopes for that album. And then it gets put out on Moribund, and it sounds the way that it does. I was just like, I was very disappointed. So when I got back to the bands and they gave me these flimsy excuses, I was just like, nah, forget it.
Okay.
But yeah, there's years and years and years of great music from that band. And they have their own thing now, called Angels on Fire, which is Pat on vocals and Anthony on drums and Corey on bass, which is basically the core members of Satan's Host minus me. And they're still doing the same kind of music. So I think they're just going to go with that and basically take Satan's Host to another level and do this, Angels on Fire thing.
I mean, if it works out that way.
Yeah, they've got a couple of songs on Spotify right now, so check it out.
Yeah, I will. But yeah, this is not the Satan's Host interview, so excuse me for asking too
That's
many
okay.
questions about
Just
it.
a little sidebar thing.
Yeah, uh, but one more, and then I'll leave it at that. How
Okay.
did it feel like in the 80s when you were seeing extreme metal starting to develop up until the 90s? Did you feel like you had a hand in that?
Uh, Maybe, but at the time that we were just putting out our music, we're just putting out stuff that we liked.
Hmm.
We didn't really care about of how it affects anybody. We just wanted to put out our music and see how it, if people like it or not. Um, and to this day, we still don't care. We just please ourselves because we're big fans of what we do.
Hmm.
And as long as we please ourselves, we know by experience that if we're happy, they're happy. And so, yeah, but when we first got together and did this band and did the Tyrant EP and then Ample Destruction, um, we didn't care. We put our influences, we have our influences in our souls, and we just put them out, and we did what we wanted to do. So, and we had a label that didn't dictate what we did, and so we just put out our stuff. We had no idea it was gonna create a wave like it did. I wish it would have been nice to ride that wave, but circumstances just kind of allowed us to fall off the back of it.
Yeah, it is nice to see both of those albums, both Ample Distraction and Power from Hell, getting a bit better treatment retrospectively, knowing that they were pretty much ignored on release by a lot of
Yeah,
people
in the beginning,
in the
maybe it
beginning.
was
Yeah.
too shocking for people. They were just like, "Whoa, crazy." And
Hmm.
then that's why people looked at it and they were just like, "Oh, I want to do that," you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
But that's how it is. People put their stuff out there, and sometimes it's such a shock to the system, like Rush,
Hmm.
that they just can't handle it, and it takes some time to grow into it and to really appreciate it. And then when they see that the band's not going to give in and the band's still going to put out their stuff, then they really grow to appreciate the band because they're like, okay, well, these guys ain't stopping, you know.
Hmm. You certainly didn't stop with Jag Panzer from like 97 to 2001. There were like 4 albums each in 1 year. And that's a pace that has never been reached again with the band. What really happened there?
Well, we had a lot of creative juices in the band back then.
Hmm.
And we also had a little bit of the label pressure by saying, that they wanted something every year.
Hmm.
But I mean, we had new members in the band. It was a refresh. I was back in the band, and so there was like new energy there. We had Chris Broderick in the band. There was new energy there.
Hmm.
Um, I was starting to really start to appreciate what Rickert was bringing to Jag Panzer, even though Rickert had been in the band 8 years, 10 years before I came back into the band. While I was doing my Satan's Host and Titan Force stuff, he was still gigging around with Jag Panzer, doing Dissident Alliance and uh, uh, other things.
Hmm.
So, uh, sure, there was a time apart from the band, but once we got our creative juices going, man, we just started steamrolling. And so, yeah, I think we were happy to be on such a good label. We were happy to be together again. We were happy to have such talented people in the band. We had grown as musicians, so we were better guys. We got along with each other better. A lot of things contributed to us putting out albums as quick as we did. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm kind of glad we're not getting a new Jag Panzer every year. I kind of like them being a bit apart. I get to. Uh,
Well, who knows? From now on, we may put out one next year. We'll have to see. It just depends on where our mood is at. If our
all
mood is
right.
in the right place, we're gonna do it. Yeah.
Hmm. How difficult is touring and recording now that you're in Greece and no longer in USA?
Not really at all. In fact, a bulk of Jag Panzer's touring has always been in Europe. And
Hmm.
so it makes it actually easier for the band now, because instead of paying, thousands of dollars for a flight from the US, they can pay less. The band can charge less because I'm already there. I'm
Hmm.
within 2 or 3 hours of Germany. I'm within, 30 minutes of Romania and Poland.
Oh,
I'm right within there. I can go to the UK in 3 or 4 hour flight. Italy, Greece, everybody's super close to me. So it's actually better for the band that I'm here. I'm happy. So that's good for the band.
yep.
And then when they want to fly me to the States, it's only one person flying from Europe to the States. So it's, if they have 5 or 6 shows, that covers the cost of my flight. So it's super easy now. If there was more than one person coming and going, it would be more expensive. But actually, it's great. And now with the digital age, I can do everything on a computer that I can do in person there. And we all have comparable studios. We all have recording album type studios in our house. So I can get really good quality vocals out of my place. Same thing with Mark and Rickard. They all have studios in their houses. Ken Rodarte has a studio in his house. So, we can collaborate things very easily with the internet these days.
That's that's fantastic to know. That means we'll probably get a new one much faster then.
We'll have to see. Yeah,
All right. Well, since you're this close, you have no reason not to come to Romania to tour.
that's right. Yep.
All right. uh, Now, you have been around for the birth of heavy metal.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, the 80s. So,
Yeah. Well, you were alive in the 70s too.
yeah. I was,
Well,
I was doing that. I
I
was
don't think you
actually
were like,
in
I don't,
cover bands. I wasn't doing anything original in the 70s.
yeah. And I don't suppose you were like listening to the ground, and when the 70s rolled around, you already knew that Black Sabbath invented heavy metal. But what were your musical upbringings like, and when did you discover rock music and heavy metal music?
Well, I was a huge Deep Purple fan.
Mm-hmm.
And Edgar Winter. I really like those groups. I've always been into melodic vocalists like Elton John and Steve Perry, and bands like that. Boston was a huge band for me, but I mean, in the early days, it was always the new age British heavy metal. So
Mm-hmm.
Tiger Tang and Whitesnake and Led Zeppelin, the Who. Those were all huge people when I was growing up. So they had a massive influence on me, and maybe not Roger Daltrey's voice so much, but his persona on stage, the songwriting of the Who, their melodies, their lyrics. The lyrics of Deep Purple, the lyrics of Black Sabbath with Ronnie James Dio, Ronnie James Dio's Rainbow, all that stuff. Like the fantasy of all that, but I just love the rich melodies that came in the early heavy metal. And that's what we try to do in Jag Panzer is continue that rich melody that we loved so much in those early days.
Mm-hmm. All right. So right after this 70s decade, I also saw you mentioned Kiss as one of your biggest influences.
Yeah. Kiss, I never bought their albums personally, but I had other people buy their albums for me,
All
like
right.
as a birthday present or for Christmas or something like that. I get all the Kiss, and I always wanted to go to a Kiss concert, but I could never make it there. I was always doing something extra or couldn't come up with a ticket price or something. But finally, a few years ago in Sweden Rock, when Jag Panzer was playing, Kiss was headlining. So I finally got to see Kiss. But yeah, Kiss was a big influence on me. And Ace Frehley was like my main guy. You know, sure, I liked Paul Stanley singing and stuff, but Ace Frehley's playing was nothing like anything out there. I mean, his choices that he played, his blues based leads and stuff that he played was, and his pentatonic scales were like nobody was playing that stuff back then. So it was just really killer.
Mm.
Love Kiss.
Is there any band from that era that you really didn't like back then, but people are like, oh, they were such great rock stars, such great metal influences or whatever. So now they're looking at them like very important, but you didn't.
Tears for Fears, and The Cure.
Okay.
Never really liked those guys, but yeah, they were huge. You know, back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, disco was happening back then, so there was a lot of disco things. Even Kiss got into the disco movement, you know, with Dynasty and stuff. So that was heavy movement. You know, Donna Summers and stuff. That was a heavy movement, but I never really got into that. I always just, you know, stayed true to my metal and listened to the Priest, you know, or Scorpions, or you know, White Snake, or you know, Tigers of Pantang, or.
All right. Well, I have to admit that I like The Cure better than most of the other bands that you mentioned. But yeah, I suppose that being there at the time when everything was getting popular, while you were into one genre of music that was not as popular, probably feels like right now, let's say in 50 years, everybody's like very much into Drake and Imagine Dragons, which
yeah.
Obviously when you're here, everybody's into them, but you're not.
It was tough to stick to your guns back then, you know, when everybody else around you is changing. It was tough, but I'm glad we did, because now we got what I consider a huge fan base that really appreciates us, because we never really deviated much. You know, we might have deviated and got a little bit heavy on Dissident Alliance, but it was, you know, it was just a little bit. I mean, it wasn't a whole lot. When I got back into the band and we decided to do Decade of a Nailed Spike Bat, we redid some songs off of that. You know, I sang on Church. So you know, we redid a couple of, like, 3 songs. Spirit Suicide, you know, and those are great songs. It just, I guess it was just took the fans by surprise because it was so different. And they were expecting me back on vocals with my melodies, and they got somebody else that was just a little bit darker, you know? And so it was kind of a departure for them, but those fans are still around. Those fans that say, you know, I really didn't like Dissonant, they're still around, you know? And that's good. It's glad to see that.
All right. Do you feel like there are things that you can do vocally for other bands like Satan's Host that you cannot do for Jag Panzer?
Oh yeah, totally. Like for Titan Force, I become more melodic and smoother in my tone. I'm not so harsh. For Satan's Host, I can do death metal, and I can do super high screams, or I can do super high clean notes, or I can do more, let's say, choral arrangements in Satan's Host than I can in Jag Panzer. But you know, I'm all about creating the song, and so what fits for Jag Panzer, I will do. And if they ask me to do these things, sure, I can go there, you know. But most of the time, the song doesn't require that. And we've had huge, you know, choir arrangements and stuff in Jag Panzer, but they, you know, they don't ask me to do these grungy vocals, and they don't ask me to go super sweet, you know. So it's kind of cool that I have these different personas with these bands, and at the same time, it allows me to stretch myself vocally and to go places that I normally wouldn't go. Like there's some singers out there that they've just always been in the same band, or they've sang the same way, and they've never really deviated or tried to, you know, stretch and see if they can go here, or see if, you know, they want to try that. And, you know, me being in these different bands, it allows me to try these extra values and then see that it works and see that I have success with that. Hopefully, if Jag Panzer wants to bring those elements in, I'd be happy to. But no, I'm fine with doing whatever, Jag Panzer deems for the song, because, it's still me, and it just makes my job easier. They're not asking me to do these crazy things that I've never done before,
Right. Also, on the topic of vocals, you have done some guest vocals for other bands. Now, I haven't checked each and every one of these, but I've mostly seen that it's for bands that are of traditional metal, maybe more doom, maybe more power, but I haven't seen you do guest vocals for an extreme metal band, even though you have had so much tangents with extreme metal.
Yeah,
Why do you think that is?
They don't know of me. I don't put myself out there saying that I can do this and I can do that. I don't have a Patreon channel to where people can get a hold of me. I don't believe in that. I don't want to, whore myself out there, have somebody, pay for me to do something like that. If they want to contact me and they want to ask me to do something, sure, I'll do it. But I'm not really trying to stretch myself out there so far to meet all these audiences and do all this stuff, because, I like the bands that I'm in. I like Jag Panzer. I mean, those are my buds that I've grown up with my whole life. I like doing the things that I do. And, you can stretch yourself too thin. You can do too many projects. And then the fans, they're like, okay, well, is he really in Jag Panzer, or is he in this band and that band and this band and this band? And I've heard him do this, I've heard him do that, but, he doesn't do that too well. So, I don't like that side of him. I always try to do things that, I can do well, and if they ask me, sure, I'll do it, but nobody's asked me, and I'm not going to put myself out there by saying, hey, I can do this. If they want to find me, they can find me.
All right. I see on Cloven Hoof's page that you're listed as their vocalist starting this year.
Yeah, those guys reached out to me.
All right.
And Christine, my wife here in Greece, knew those guys for a long time, has known Lee for a long time. And they just parted ways with their singer. And so they asked me, hey, we like the way you sing, and we think it would match our music. So what do you think? And they said, we've got this Up the Hammers thing coming up. So I passed it by the Jag Panzer guys, and I said, hey, they're asking me to do this. And they said, yeah, we don't care. And in the contract that I signed with Atomic Fire, it allows me to do other projects, like Three Tremors and stuff. So I said, yeah, go ahead. So they liked my voice a lot. They liked, the adoration from the fans when we did the Up the Hammers. So they've said they were going to send me something, but I've yet to see anything. I'm totally open for doing something with them, because I think my voice would fit their band. Mm-hmm. But I told them, as long as it doesn't get in the way of what Jag Panzer is doing, I'll do what I can for you. So as long as their tours don't intermingle and stuff to where I'm doing 2 shows in one day, then that'll be great. But yeah, even when I talked to him at Up the Hammers, they said, yeah, we've got songs we want to present to you, but I haven't seen anything yet. So hopefully something soon.
All right. We're also waiting.
It's gonna be great.
Mm-hmm.
I think my voice is going to match well with what they do.
Yeah. I also saw that you did vocals, live vocals for Grim Reaper, the reincarnation for the singer. I think that was it was right after his passing, right?
Yeah, well, once again, they had called me up, and I'm a huge fan of, or was anyway, of Grim Reaper. And so they called me up and they said, hey, somebody dropped your name and said that you're a good vocalist, and we looked you up, and we looked at your past, and we heard some stuff, and we think you'd be great. And also Satan's Host covered See You in Hell, and they heard that, and they said, it just sounds great, so would you mind doing this? And so, yeah, I said, hey, Steve Grimmett's my hero. I love the stuff that he did, and yeah, I'd be honored to do that. And so yeah, I did it.
Okay. So this pretty much covers everything I wanted to know about the music history. So what else is it to Harry? What else do you like to do other than music? Because I also assume that you're no longer partying like you did in the 80s.
Yeah. I don't do anything. I'm 61 now.
All
I'm
right.
just approaching retirement age. So I'm just kind of, you know, sitting around and doing side projects vocally. I'm
Mm.
all about music now. So I don't care about, you know, working and doing other things here in Greece. You know, because I have people that ask me to go on tour and sing songs for them. So I want to make myself available. But yeah, I'm reaching retirement age, and I think once I retire, I'm still just going to continue with Jag Panzer and whoever else wants me.
All right. Do you collect music?
I still do, yeah. The latest thing that I got was Todd Michael Hall's solo album. That
Mhm.
was really great. And I picked up the latest Dark Tranquility. Love that. But you know, in the latest Camelot, love that too. But there isn't a lot of bands that have put out stuff because the pandemic really killed that for a while.
Mm.
But bands are starting to put out things now. And but you know, I have a strict genre of bands that I listen to, and so I don't really stray from that much, you know.
Okay. Uh, well then, this just about covers it. Thank you for
Okay.
your time.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it was an awesome interview.
Well, glad you liked it. All right then. Good luck on tour whenever that one's coming up, and
Thanks.
hope to hear your voice in Jag Panzer and other projects as well.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, man. Yeah, and hopefully we'll see you out there soon.
I
We'll
can
come to
only hope so.
Bulgaria and Poland again because those are crazy fans.
Bye.
Bye.